Apologies, I don't have any fancy videos to play. Thanks, Paul Collins, you made me look bad. So I've been really looking forward to coming here and having this opportunity to speak. And since I was invited months ago, it's definitely a pleasure to be here. But the interesting thing is how our natural human responses and our emotions try to sabotage us and talk us out of doing something that's a great opportunity, but potentially out of our comfort zone. And so when thinking about the topic to discuss today, there's been a question that's been on my mind a lot recently. So in a world where technology can now generate art, design logos, even write poetry, what does it mean to create as a human? What is it that makes our creativity truly irreplaceable on the human level? And I've long believed that creativity isn't just about what we create or what we make. Creativity is about who you actually become in the process. And most importantly, how we adapt over time to change, which I believe was a really important message yesterday in one of the presentations. So I learned how to approach every project as a gift and as an opportunity to journey inward, not just in our acquisition of skills or tools that we learn, but to grow in our own self-awareness and with purpose. So I assume everyone has a bio. Mine says creative director, but I've learned over time not to let a title or a role or a position to define who I am. And all of this is temporary. We go to school, we learn new things, we switch jobs, we change roles. But I believe what truly does define us is the sum of all of our individual experiences, our individual stories and our journeys, especially our imperfections in what we create and in ourselves personally. And our story, and our unique story at that, and the journey that we take, regardless of title or position, is what makes us up. So a little bit about my journey. I grew up on this street in London. I was raised in a single-parent household, which was very common at the time. And my mother, thankfully, positively supported my creative pursuits. And I think parents of that generation, didn't really do that. It was like go and be a lawyer or a doctor or something of that nature. But she positively supported all of my creativity from a child. And she sacrificed material things in exchange for experiences. And what I didn't understand at that moment in time was that these experiences would be more valuable to me than any material object. Any Super Nintendo, any Sega Mega Drive, any PlayStation. I'm probably dating myself there with the Super Nintendo and the Mega Drive. But experiences by way of travel provided a way for me to see beyond what was in front of me, beyond my neighborhood, beyond my education, and beyond our economic boundaries, which was most important as a family. And it was here that I learned how to envision more for myself, and very early on, understand the power of manifesting your future self. And through manifesting your future self and visualizing an image of yourself in the future, I was able to unlock the ability to manifest how I got there, and I never let that idea go from my mind. So for my foundation course in art and design, I started here at Central St. Martin's. It was a journey, but I managed to get in there. Central St. Martin's was a great school, but fortunately, or I think actually fortunately, I was going to say unfortunately, but I actually, Freudian slip, it was actually fortunate. I was denied to the degree program. Apparently my work was too rigid, too kind of graphic design, too structured. So what happened is I actually ended up getting into here, the London College of Communication, and I heard somebody else here went to Chelsea, which is part of the same institute. And so the London College of Communication taught me the fundamentals of typography and graphic design in general. And most of all, what I did love in hindsight about it is I was encouraged to think. So credit to our alumni, Omer and Rachel, for this clip. And as you'll see, our design teachers always enforced an emphasis on ideas and an emphasis on thinking, on conceptual thinking. And everything we created had to have a concept, regardless of how beautiful any final image could be or any final piece of video could be. There had to be a concept at the core. And the concept was more important often than the final product. Form wasn't enough, technique was never enough, software skills were not enough. In fact, we didn't even have any software classes. We weren't taught Photoshop. They had the software, but there were no classes really for that. So much so that we had these big sketchbooks. There was like 5 or 6 of them for every single project. And the density of the ideas in there was actually what got you the final grade. The execution, yes, had to be good, but the ideas were more important. So to give you a little taste of the teaching philosophy, let's watch this clip.
Here at the London College of Printing, students learn about the ground rules of typography and typesetting. To many, letterpress may seem an obsolete practice. Even to this day, David Debner teaches letterpress. Here's what he had to say.
Computers make students sloppy. It makes for sloppy thinking and sloppy approach. Good typographers can think. If you can't think, you produce a lot of nonsense, because in thinking you can delete the non-essential. They stop actually using pencil and paper, and they work directly on the computer, which in itself is okay, but I think the computer inhibits their ability to develop. I'm going to put a touch more ink on now. Ink that up a bit more. And what we can do, if you get your paper, just run it through to the end. Is that okay? Yes. Position-wise?
And now, let's have a word with one of the students.
I can set my paragraphs really well on a computer and print them out and get a very good quality laser printout, you know, perfect.
It won't teach you to think.
I don't see the point in spending weeks and weeks and weeks setting lines of text.
An analogy could be someone playing jazz. You've got to learn the instrument first. You can't just... You can, but it just sounds bloody awful.
It's a tool. It's like any tool. You need to learn how to use it.
It's changed. You have to accept change. You can't hold back. But basic principles of typography haven't changed. I don't think. You do become elitist because you care. You need to be a little bit elitist. There's nothing wrong in that. They're very, almost nerd-like, really. They care about, you've got to care about what you're doing.
Letterpress is so time-consuming. So it's just about maybe using it in a bit more of a quirky way.
So I think that video captures like such a beautiful message. I feel it's even more relevant today, while we witness in real time how technology is rapidly changing our way of working across so many mediums. That looked very manual in that video, but the underlying basic principles of typography, filmmaking, photography, etc., have not changed. And it's also important not to lose sight of the ability to think and always understand where these principles came from and use that in your craft moving forward, even when we're assisted by new technology as it evolves over the next few years. So during my time at the college, I stumbled upon this mistakenly, but I was very happy that I did. The title sequence for Seven by Kyle Cooper. And from this moment, I became obsessed. I dissected every frame, every sequence, every project that came out of Imaginary Forces at that time to discover how it was all put together. And I imagined myself working at this company and would not let the idea go from my head. The obsession ultimately led me to contacting Kyle and finding an opportunity to email him I think I asked him for a paragraph for my thesis and my dissertation, which led me ultimately then to share some of my work at the end of my degree course. And that led to a life-changing job offer to work with him at his company, Prologue Films. But first, while all of that was happening and the paperwork was going on, I stayed at the BBC for about a month while everything was being figured out. Met some really great people, some of which I still collaborate with today, before finally making the move to Los Angeles to work at Prologue. So to work with my design hero, Kyle, who, like my design teachers at the college, encouraged me to think every day, who was taught by these men who challenged him to think, flanked here on the left by Paul Rand and on the right, Armin Hoffman. And my time with Kyle, to put it lightly, was one of like an intense apprenticeship, not to ever find myself idle, to create value through thinking and through ideas, through good ideas, and to incorporate ever-evolving technology into the craft only as a tool to bring ideas to life. And anyway, I stayed here for about 10 years before leaving for some healthy change and went on to collaborate with some friends at design shops around LA. And then I set up like a small boutique company for about 5 years. We didn't get a building. I was just making use of, this is before COVID actually, working with people internationally, lots of Zoom calls. So that worked out for about 5 years. And then these guys called. It must have been around 2020. And I got an email from them. And this is where I am now. And yet another place that encourages me to think every single day. And I feel really fortunate to be part of such a fantastic team of creators, designers, animators, producers, and lead such a talented team who challenge me every day to now see and think about things a little different. And so every step of the way of my creative journey, there's been like this really increased extreme value placed on the ability to think. And I don't want to undersell this. Thinking is a timeless activity, and adapting to change is how we're able to communicate and spread our ideas and share our knowledge efficiently. In a world where tools are being designed to do more of the heavy lifting for us, if you look back, it was letterpress first and then the computer, but I'm sure people were complaining, transitioning from movable type to the computer, which we saw Dave was very passionate about that. The ability to think is something that will never die. And to share what you've learned through all of our personal human experiences holds immense value. And I believe in the future, this is going to hold even more value as time progresses. So throughout the last 18 to 20 years or so, I've come to discover there's been these 3 pillars that have shown up in my life and played a huge role in my journey. And sometimes, like, never fully balanced. It's hard to get everything balanced. Some play stronger at times, but they're constantly weaving in and out of my life. So the first pillar, internal vision. So I see this as your intuition, your creative alignment, and alignment with your personal truth. What am I here to explore, and what am I here to express? What is my gift that I'm here to share with each and every one of you? And everybody in the audience has the same gift, hidden deeply sometimes, and we have to find it. Sometimes we're lucky to find this early, sometimes it can take decades, but eventually we need to pull it out of us. It's the reflective part of ourselves, the internal part of the creative process, where ideas and direction are driven by our internal guidance system. And I often like to call this our compass. It's our navigation system or lighthouse that's constantly in the back of our mind. It's guiding us. And if we pay attention to this and we're receptive to it, it aligns you towards your true creative purpose. We then have external influences. This is how human experience is shaped by the external world. There's lots of external things that can positively or negatively affect us. And the connection that runs through both our internal vision and our external influences. And so when all of this is practiced with awareness and intention, creativity can become a process of evolution, of spiritual evolution, growth, something that shapes who we are as much as we create. And so as we take a closer look at these, just consider these as my internal thoughts, conversations with mentors, internal reflections, notes that I've taken along the way through my experiences, conversations with clients, with teachers, with friends. And I've incorporated these into my practice over the years. And some of this I wish that I understood at a very early age. And these reflections and thoughts have become building blocks that how I now perceive the world through a more of a creative lens. So first, internal visions. So I believe every idea or every creation begins as a fleeting idea, kind of like in the void, in the space, existing in a state of potential, waiting to be pulled down by our consciousness, to become material from the immaterial, to become solid. And creativity is this strange act of transforming the invisible into the visible. And you could say that every creation, whether it's a piece of art, design, music, or clothing, begins as a fleeting idea of potential. It exists in the abstract, and through our creativity, we're able to give it form. And ideas can emerge unexpectedly, sometimes in moments of silence, but quite often through overcoming resistance. These ideas are always waiting to be pulled down into our consciousness. But this has been most successful for me when I've been able to create space to be open and receptive to this process. So how do we become receptive? As creatives, I believe we have the unique ability to look beyond the surface and beyond our perceived reality. And the world around us is full of inspiration through conversations and shapes, patterns, people, new ideas, evolving technology. But we have the ability to see beyond the surface and again to think. And the true power of creativity is about accessing or seeing the unseen. In the book Meta-Human, Deepak Chopra describes this as an infinite realm of potential where ideas exist in this state of readiness, ready to be pulled down and manifested. And in recognizing our unique human potential to imagine and to think, we have access to this infinite realm of potential. And it's a space where every possibility, every thought is already existing and accessible by transcending our limited thoughts and our perceptions. And so when we understand this, and we understand this philosophy, we're able to open ourselves up in this way, and we're able to move beyond the boundaries and restrictions of what we think we already know, what we've been taught, or more importantly, what we've been conditioned to think. And it's here in this space where we're able to reshape the boundaries of what we can imagine is possible, and realize that these ideas that we seek, that we're trying to come up with, are already waiting and ready for us. And we enter a space where intuition and imagination is able to guide us. In my experience, some of the best ideas have definitely come through resistance. I mean, working until 4 o'clock in the morning, watching the sunrise, you're completely exhausted. When I've been struggling with creativity, that I'm sure a lot of us in this room do, when I've been experiencing self-doubt, when I'm sleep deprived in the middle of the night, it's here I try to practice what could be called the loss of self, a relaxing of our ego, allowing ideas to come to me rather than trying to force it or trying to control the process. And I was happy to read this. In a recent interview with Harper's Bazaar, I don't have the text up here, but I'm just saying I was happy to read this article. Kendrick Lamar refers to this as a threshold of pain in the spirituality. And he describes how by pushing through his runs in the morning, he's able to receive these whispers or these downloads, insights for topics that he's trying to understand. And it's through this similar resistance that we're able to clear this mental space in our minds for ideas to eventually take form. So by understanding this process, we can be conscious and create these conditions or experiences that allow these fleeting ideas to materialize. And in a sense, I believe creativity is the act of transforming the invisible into the visible, and resistance in a way acts as this crucible in which these ideas are actually formed. But to do this, there are some really serious barriers to entry. I spoke about one of them at the beginning. Some of the greatest barriers to entry to creativity come from within us, deep inside, within our own self-imposed limitations. And if we have the power to manifest our reality and our ideas, one of these biggest opponents is doubt. Doubt, fear. I think we all experience this at some time, but to varying degrees through various situations that we put ourselves in. And our insecurities can keep us from exploring our true potential. I mean, can you imagine how many ideas go unseen, undeveloped, because somebody doesn't have the ability to push beyond doubt? And I think we all experience a lot of that, and probably there's a lot of ideas in this room, including myself, that haven't seen the light of day because we just haven't been able to push through our own doubt. We begin to believe that these limitations are real, but they're just actually constructs of our own mind. There are many, but I think imposter syndrome is arguably one of the biggest demons that we have to constantly try and slay. And it attacks our self-worth. And imposter syndrome causes us to question our abilities, our visions, our values, and our worthiness. We wonder if we're deserving, if we belong, if we're truly qualified, or if we've somehow just been lucky. Imposter syndrome is this psychological pattern where doubt can creep into our mind. We can question our own accomplishments, and we can feel like we don't fit in many occasions. And I personally experienced this when I moved to the United States. It was a different environment. It was a very challenging situation. And all of these voices were amplified even further. There were people that were more advanced than me in Photoshop skills or After Effects. editing, and like I referred to before, we were taught the ability to think, but we weren't taught these skills. And so I questioned, like, why am I going to survive here? Every day I go into work, I think I'm going to be fired and sent home. And fortunately, that didn't happen, and that's another story. But I do thank Kyle's way of thinking at that time, because he did place, as I said, extreme value on the ability to create and come up with concepts. So that kept me on the fishing line a little longer. Imposter syndrome can leave us with this perceived lack of self-worth. And if we give it power, it can actually diminish our light. And it can diminish our light for an extraordinary amount of time if we're not conscious of how this can affect us and how we can deal with it. Imposter syndrome can create these feelings of isolation. It can block our personal and professional growth. And it can create an unclear self-identity or a lack of self-direction. And so doubt is like this phenomenon that can destroy our purpose. And overcoming imposter syndrome every day challenges us to confront our deepest insecurities and our fears and push beyond them. And so for me, I now see the journey through self-doubt as an opportunity to let go of the need for perfection. It's very important. If we place too much stress on the need to perfect, sometimes we'll never start. And trust in my own potential to succeed. Not what anybody else is thinking, not by any judgment of others. And to do this, we actually need to embody confidence, even if it can seem delusional at first. And by creating these situations and crafting these places to put ourselves in, our human emotions can somehow become more malleable. And we have the opportunity to grow stronger and even more resilient. So I now see every creative challenge not just as an opportunity to create a great piece of work or a slick piece of video content or a nice film. I now see every creative challenge as an opportunity for a breakthrough, one that requires me to face my inner fears, my inner shadows, and most importantly, embrace my vulnerability. And there are, as I said, these external influences too. So throughout my creative process, I've had to always navigate the noise of other people's opinions. I think we can all attest to that. And some opinions can be positive, and some can be dangerous and misleading. And the end result is sometimes knocking you off your path. And it's in these situations that I've learned how to trust my own spiritual guidance, that compass, and filter out what doesn't align with my truth. So one of the techniques, we all need to do it, we all need to seek guidance at some point, but I like to seek guidance vertically versus horizontally. And even then, it's essential to practice discernment and consider truly has your best interests at heart. And what I mean by vertically is seeking advice from people who have gone down the road that you envision yourself going down to. They might be in positions that you desire to be in the future. But even then, I always try to question why somebody is providing that advice. Is there self-interest in the advice that they're giving you? Or is someone projecting their own limitations onto me? An example of this that I'll never forget, it was in college, and the first day we had to put up work that kind of represented where we wanted to be, where we would finish that course. And so I put up some of the frames that I had earlier from 7 and some other sequences. And the visiting tutor at the time said, "Oh, you know what? I think you should maybe not aim for that. These people have been doing this for 20 years. Like, how are you going to be able to get to that position within the next 8 months?" And if I had listened to him, I wouldn't be standing here on this stage. I definitely wouldn't have gone to work for my dream job at the time with Kyle at Prologue. And it's very important that we all try to take note of why somebody is saying this to us. And I truly believe people do try to project their own limitations because maybe he felt that he couldn't get to that position. But that doesn't mean anyone here can't get to that position. So be very cautious and filter all of the noise from external influences. As we grow in our creative practice, we often arrive at these crossroads, and I like to call it the creative hard fork. Peter, you might appreciate some of the crypto technology there, terminology, I should say. These decisions in whatever I've represented have really, really formed like this fundamental turning point in my career. And for me, this fork was when I was a designer and I had the opportunity to elevate and become an art director. And I enjoyed being hands-on, but there was an opportunity to step into the role of creative leadership. And I resisted this idea at first, and I enjoyed being hands-on. And the problem was I couldn't see past that. I enjoyed the craft. But I was taught at that time that in order to become more valuable, I had to oversee things from a higher perspective, oversee more projects and be across more things. And so I've since learned through that experience that I resisted greatly, that creative leadership doesn't mean that you have to be fully removed from the creative process. You don't have to lose touch with it. In fact, you actually have a great opportunity to directly influence other people and influence the creative from a higher level. And the beauty of creative leadership that I've found over the last few years is about cultivating an environment where others can find their flow and create a space for others to thrive. And so choosing leadership has forced me to balance my personal creative desires with the collective well-being of other people. And I had to let go of this attachment, and it took a while. And I was used to being the one behind every creative decision, every pixel, the color, the edit, the frame-by-frame animation. And I had to learn to step into this role where the success of others became just as important, or if not more important, than my own individual success or my own individual creative expression. And so it meant embracing this level of uncertainty of what leadership could actually bring me to. And so trusting others with the work that I used to control became number one. And understanding that creativity is not about individual achievement. It's about collaboration, it's about growth, and it's about transformation. And sometimes what happens is we become so egotistical about our own work, it's extremely hard to let go. But by letting go of the ego, I've been able to allow myself to evolve, not only as the creative, but as someone capable of leading, teaching, and hopefully inspiring others. And so to successfully navigate change and evolve, I've learned to navigate the part of me that clings to what has been familiar in my life, and that whatever's trying to control things in my external and my internal thoughts and processes. So ego is one of these things that it clings on to past success, old physical ways of working, and the desire to always be recognized. But the path ahead for us, it demands something different in order to evolve. It requires us to leave behind these parts of ourselves, shedding the skin, and trust in what we're becoming, even if we don't fully see it yet. And so where does this all lead us? And I love this quote. I'll just read it out loud. So we will realize that the truth we have to tell and the things we have to do are too unique to fit within a usual job setting. And so the Celestine Prophecy was written in 1993, and it's a book that actually switched on a lot of things in my head recently. And the ninth insight, the emerging culture, was very much ahead of its time. It discusses human progress and the opportunity for us to gain time and add more value to society. It explains that as we evolve, as our intuitions become clearer, automation could eventually free up some time so that we can pursue our own truths and our own purpose and our own unique gifts that we have to share with the world. And exponential technologies, they're forming at a rapid pace, and they're changing the very fabric of how we interact, how we connect, and how we share all of our ideas, and how we experience the world. And the true value of what we create could exist drastically beyond the confines of fulfilling a specific role or a particular job. And it's our individual uniqueness, as I explained before, and our expertise that are the key to tapping into our creative purpose and connecting with the deeper meaning behind what we have to creatively offer each other and allow that to shape our path moving forward. And so how do we do this? One way is to seek to become a person of value to others. Improving others is the next level of improving ourselves. First, we improve ourselves, we gain knowledge, we commit to a journey of mastering something, and then you improve others. And we have the ability to become individually valuable. So we can teach and share knowledge and pass on our instincts from a human perspective when the systems we currently rely on are on such an unknown trajectory. And we can achieve this by communicating our truth and moving in our spiritual power. So now more than ever, I believe we should be exploring ways in which we can communicate our gifts. And we need to quiet our minds to think about challenging ourselves to find at least one thing that we would teach our younger selves. That topic that ignites us from within. We need to not fear this rapid enhancement of technology, but adopt it as a tool and as a positive change in the collective consciousness is what we can make if we adopt these tools to further our creativity. And creativity is a force that has the power to unite each and every one of us, not just through technology, but through our shared purpose and our connected values. And so if you think about it, we're all nodes in this expansive, interconnected network. Individually, we bring our unique experiences and our visions and our insights to the table, but together we form something far greater. And I see this as an ecosystem of creativity that's able to flow beyond what any of us could imagine or accomplish alone. Every connection we make, every idea we share, allows us to move beyond what we're used to fulfilling as a solo creative. And so as we move forward, let's remember that our creativity does not exist in isolation. We're part of a larger whole, each contributing to the collective consciousness, and each making the network even more dynamic, even more resilient, even more expansive, and even more creative. And as we approach new projects, remember that creativity and the ability to adapt, and most importantly, think, is our unique gift as humans. And remember that our thoughts have the power to shape, to transform, to connect, and engage on such a deep level with a deep level of intimacy. And technology alone cannot communicate from the heart, nor from a place of intricate, individual experience, nor can it contribute to the collective consciousness with intention or purpose in the way that humans can, at least for now. And it's my opinion that we're not in competition with technology, but rather we're advancing towards a future where technology is in syncopation with humanity, rapidly enhancing our unique abilities to bring forth new ideas and contribute to something that's far greater than ourselves. So I believe it's time for us to become experts, tell our stories. There's been some beautiful stories over this last 2 days, and I'm looking forward to hearing more of these. Share our obsessions, share our interests, go deep, become vulnerable, educate and share useful knowledge with one another. And we are all connected, but not just by technology, but by our shared values, our ideas, our creativity, and our purpose. And we just need our experiences and our thoughts, and luckily, an internet connection. And creativity is part of an act of communication, where we can share our ideas and our unique truths, and the gift and our wisdoms. And we're contributing to the creative evolution of our humanity. And this is something that only we as humans can do, at least for now. Thank you.